What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about what Mercury Steam had to say here, and it's absolutely incredible news for the 2D Metroid franchise, for Metroid Dread in particular, and it's something that I knew exactly was going to happen when I first started tallying the sales numbers and the potential and what this game could do, and that is Metroid Dread becoming one, the best-selling Metroid game of all time, and two, selling over 3 million units, and now we have confirmation 100% from somebody either working on the game or Nintendo, not just other types of things, but somebody that's directly working with the game when it comes to Metroid Dread, part of the development team. Obviously, the CEO of Mercury Steam would know how much the game has sold up to this point. So we're going to get into that, and also a little bit more controversy with the game as well, with potential chaotic development and some stuff there, because there's definitely been some reports on that. But before we get into anything, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my RPG Nintendo Switch videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump right into this here, because GameReactor had the beat, and they spoke with Mercury Steam CEO Enrique Alvarez, and I hope I'm saying that name correctly, and how it was working with Nintendo, how it was making this type of game that Metroid Dread ended up being an award-winning game, a Game of the Year candidate, in addition to selling so well. So let's first talk about what Mr. Alvarez had to say first about the relationship with Nintendo and them working together. Quote, "We have an excellent understanding of each other. I think that's fair to say that over time we became friends. And they are super talented people, super hard-working people. They have a work ethic that is unbeatable," speaking about Nintendo. "And they are open to accept new ideas and to try them. So we were also very hungry for leaving our own mark on the franchise, and we never ceased to suggest and propose ideas. And many of them ended up in the final product. So we are very proud of the collaboration between us and Nintendo. And yeah, as I said, one of the best development experiences we could possibly dream of." Now, back in October of 2021, that wasn't necessarily the reports that were coming out from people out there. Games published a report with different accusations about Metroid Dread's development, including how it was chaotic. And Alvarez was asked to comment on that. He didn't say anything then, but now he had more stuff to say now at this point. Quote, here's what he had to say responding to that. "I don't think the development was chaotic. Chaotic development doesn't end with one of the best games in the franchise. It doesn't end with a game that has sold over 3-point-something million copies. We're going to talk about that more here. It doesn't end with a game that won TGA awards. That's all I have to say about it." So there's absolutely some PR here and there's some truth here, but obviously the real truth, exactly what happened, is always somewhere in between. It's not a black and white situation here. There's definitely some gray area. So I'll try to break this down, then we'll talk about the 3 million, because that's also huge when it comes to the implications of 2D Metroid, the rumors that are talking about, or in terms of what's going to happen next with this. So we will discuss that in just a bit, but let me go ahead and go over this first. One, working with Nintendo, obviously Nintendo gives you great resources. They have really hardworking people. They've got good support. Most independent developers would love to work with Nintendo on a classic IP. So Mercury Steam got their opportunity between the work that they already did with the Castlevania Lords of Shadow game on the Nintendo 3DS. They did great work there. It showed Nintendo that they can work on a Metroidvania game or a Metroid game. So good job on that front, especially because things were looking shaky after Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. And the 3DS Castlevania game not necessarily doing the best on the sales market. Now, to get to the accusations in terms of what he had to say, absolutely, there's some differing opinions here. But once again, there's one thing that people say, and then there's something else that somebody says. And there's a lot of areas in between. Now, are there some issues like with the crediting? I heard about that. I heard about some of the issues with maybe the development in terms of the management was being ridiculous and all this. And these are things that have popped up before with Mercury Steam. This is stuff that happened with Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 and the development of that, and even the first game. So it's not like this is the first accusation when it comes down to it and people leaving and saying certain things. But I just don't exactly know what the real 100% truth is on one side or another. So for right now, there are some accusations. He feels one way. Obviously, he's going to, back for the company and everything like that. But you can have a game that has a troubled development and still wins awards. I mean, we've seen lots of games have troubled development, really long development, have issues, have people complaining, crunch, whatever the case is, and still win awards and sell really good. So I don't know what that is all about. But once again, we don't know exactly who's telling the 100% truth here or not. We do know that they weren't credited in some of the stuff, but that's something it's like, okay, it is what it is on that front. So that's that. Now let's go ahead and let's get into this next part here, because it's something that I was saying exactly was going to happen, and I'm very happy to be proven right, at least with this statement here. He said that the game is sold over 3-point-something million. So it's over. He said over 3-point-something million. So that is huge. And I felt that the Metroid franchise could always do that good. Remember, the best-selling Metroid game ever was Metroid Prime, I think on the GameCube individual release at around 2.8, 2.9 million. And that led many to believe that Metroid Dread didn't have a shot, even lifetime, of selling over what Metroid Prime did because of the previous 2D Metroid games. However, there's something that a lot of people were leaving out, and that is the Nintendo Switch effect. When you have that big, highly rated game that comes out in a franchise, a Nintendo franchise, the Switch has been known over the course of time to boost that franchise up above what it did before. We saw this for various different Nintendo Switch games before Dread came out. We saw it with 3D Zelda, Breath of the Wild. We saw it with 3D Mario, with Super Mario Odyssey. We saw it with Super Smash Bros. We saw it with so many other games that launched on the Nintendo Switch that when it came out, man, it really did do better than the previous games in the franchise. We also saw it with smaller games like Xenoblade Chronicles, for example. In addition to Fire Emblem Three Houses, both of these smaller RPGs for Nintendo busted past the previous sales records in the franchise on the Nintendo Switch. So I felt very confident that Metroid Dread was going to be the best-selling Metroid game of all time, but it was also going to hit past that 3 million milestone. Now, the big question here that everybody wants to probably know, or at least talk about more as well, did it do it in that 1 year? Shout out to my man RGT and everything. Did it do it in that 1 year? Well, there's not real clarification here. He said that it sold over 3-point-something million. So one could guess that if it's over 3-point-something million, it could be a bit over that, 3.1, 3.2. How much did they sell in the past 6-7 months here in 2023 compared to what they were at back in October of 2022 for the full year? We won't really know, honestly, when it comes down to it. But at the end of the day, the game absolutely sold, probably based off of the game selling 2.9 million as early as back in March of 2022. I'm pretty sure based on the new updates that came out, the sales that were continuing to go on there, some of the discounts that they did have, that the game did cross that 2.9 million into the 3 million mark with the influx of new users that were coming in and buying the Nintendo Switch with games like Xenoblade Chronicles, with games like Splatoon 3, with games like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Metroid Dread was also selling some numbers in between that as well. So I do feel that the game is solidly over 3 million as of last year or so, but we don't know where he's talking about these numbers. We don't know where he's referencing from, but what we do know, based on what he has to say here, that it's over 3 million units. And that's exactly what I felt that it would be. Those two things, over 3 million units, in addition to being the best selling Metroid game of all time and blown away all other 2D Metroid games. It's pretty much got most 2D Metroid games beat by at least minimum of like 500,000, 300 to 500,000. I think Super Metroid got up to about 2.5 million or so, its individual release on the Super Nintendo. And then it's got a lot of the other Metroids beat when it comes to the old school Metroids beat by about 1 million or so. So this is incredible news. This is something that you want to hear for the future of the franchise. And that is so important with this. People need to realize that the fact that this game, a 2D platformer Metroid experience, can sell over 3 million units at that $60. They sold 2.9 million units at that full price of $60 with really no real price drops. That is incredible, and it secures a future for the Metroid franchise. And on top of that, there's already been rumors that there will be another 2D Metroid game coming from Mercury Steam for the Nintendo Switch or for probably the next generation Nintendo system. I doubt there's going to be anything anytime soon because Metroid Dread is still selling on the Nintendo Switch, and you don't want to rush something out. Although they probably could if they just reused all the assets and reused everything. But I'm guessing there's going to be a new theme, a new type of enemy, a new type of danger or threat and style to this next Metroid 2D game as it advances things forward for the franchise. So I think they'll take their time, they'll put together a team, make sure that Mercury Steam's got everything that they need. Obviously Nintendo's gonna plan it, and then they'll make a game probably in the Switch 2 era if they're probably starting the planning phase or something like that. But there is rumors that yes, there's already going to be another one, and of course there should be. I mean, Metroid Dread did incredible on the Nintendo Switch. This is just incredible news for fans out there, incredible news for Mercury Steam, for Nintendo. Metroid fans, you can rest assured that 2D Metroid isn't going anywhere. And I'll say this, I like Prime games, but unfortunately I get nauseous with first-person shooters or first-person games, and it's only gotten worse as I get older and older. So therefore the Prime games aren't as hyped for me. They're still really good and I enjoy them. I've played them before, but to me 2D Metroid is the essence of actual Metroid. That's the Metroid that I grew up playing back in the day on the NES. That's the Metroid that I loved on the Super Nintendo, which is still one of the best games of all time to me with Super Metroid. That's the Metroid that I carried around everywhere that I wanted to play the game on the GBA, with two incredible Metroid games, with the Metroid Zero Mission remake of the original NES game, in addition to Metroid Fusion, one of my favorite Metroid games that added some cool features to the Metroid universe, and one of the linchpins in terms of moving the story forward and what Samus did. So to me, 2D Metroid always has a special place in my heart and will always be incredible, and Metroid Dread knocked it out of the park. It's honestly my #1 Metroid game. Out of all the different Metroid games that have released so far, Metroid Dread is my favorite one. It has the difficulty, it has the smoothness of controls, it has the replay value, it has the graphics, it has everything. The sound design is awesome. The only thing that is missing is the music. The music is just it's just okay. It's not as good as the previous Metroid games, but it's still okay, just not as great. But it has by far one of the greatest endings of all time. You combine that with some of the best gameplay, probably not even some of the best, the best gameplay in the Metroid series, with an incredible hook with the Emmys and everything, and getting out of those zones and being able to counter them and the difficulty. It just really makes me happy that this game did as good as it did, beating out every single other Metroid game in pretty much 6 months. Remember, it did 2.9 million by the end of March. So within 6 months, it outsold everything. That is the Nintendo Switch effect when it comes down to it, when it comes to games just doing so much better on the Switch than they did before in the past. And I cannot wait to see what they do next. But what is your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to Metroid Dread and everything that we discussed here, from some of the controversies to Metroid Dread selling over 3 million units? And what would you like to see for the next Metroid game? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other videos on Metroid Dread and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.